debate. The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure for me to be able to participate in this debate. I'll be splitting my time with the member for Caribou Prince George. And just on a slightly different vein, I want to say I know this has been a tough week for many of us here. I want to express my own personal condolences to the Hillier and Ford family, and also express my best wishes to the member of Scarborough-Agincourt. I understand there's some health issues now that have reemerged. I've really enjoyed debating with him in this House thus far, and I look forward to him having a full recovery and continuing to contribute to this place. Mr. Speaker, this Bill C7 is about the RCMP. It's about collective bargaining in the context of the RCMP. And I want to just, before I get into some substantive arguments about the specific issue of secret ballots, which is, I know, been sort of the focus of the back and forth and the focus of the disagreement, I want to just kind of review some of the ground in terms of our perspective on this bill. Our bill acknowledges and respects a recent Supreme Court decision which says that the RCMP are entitled to bargain collectively. And we also think that for the most part, C7 is a fairly reasonable response to the court ruling. And we do support this legislation going through to committee. Though that's sort of the basic underlying groundwork here. However, we feel very strongly that this legislation needs to protect the right of RCMP members to vote in terms of unionization, to vote via a secret ballot. That's an important right. It's respected for Canadians in the vast majority of contexts. We think that working men and women in the RCMP and in other environments need to have their right to vote in a secret ballot respected. Now, notably as well, wage disputes will continue to be resolved through binding arbitration. There will be no striking of police officers, obviously. That's pretty obvious, but it's, I think, an important point to clarify. Now, in the context of discussing the RCMP, I do want to just briefly salute the very good work done in my own constituency by the RCMP. My riding of Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, we don't have municipal, and certainly in Alberta, we don't have provincial police forces, so we're served directly by the RCMP. And we greatly appreciate the incredible work that the RCMP does in terms of direct policing, but also in terms of a very positive engagement with the community. I know in some of the past work I've done with different not-for-profit organizations, it's been great to have the engagement of the RCMP with different not-for-profits. For example, I was involved with the Rotary Club of Sherwood Park. We would regularly have members of the RCMP come and update us on some of the issues and challenges in our community, and we had a really positive working relationship that was facilitated by that connection. Now, because of the immense respect that we on this side of the House, and I think all members have for members of the RCMP, we think it is important that this legislation protect their right to make decisions about collective bargaining through a secret ballot. Now, we're at less than 10 government bills so far, and 2 of them deal with union certification, and neither of them protect a right to see a secret ballot. In fact, one of them that we've already debated in this place explicitly eliminated the protection of the right to secret ballot. So it's clear how this government sees the issue of the secret ballot. And I've said before in this House that this is really an issue that I would have thought would have been resolved. We're kind of rehaving this 19th century debate about why secret ballots are actually important. Again, something that I think many people would have thought was settled. But I think it's important to identify why a secret ballot is important, and I want to identify what I see as 4 key motivating arguments for the secret ballot. Secret ballots protect a right to privacy. They ensure protection against reprisals. They ensure protection against corruption, and they facilitate a necessary process of deliberation that allows voters to most effectively express what is in their own interests. So first of all, this issue of a right to privacy. Now, a public ballot does not respect an individual's right to privacy. It requires an individual to write or declare publicly their political convictions. And there was a time when this is how elections happened, when people had to declare publicly who they were voting for, and there were all kinds of problems with that. But one of them is that their basic right to have their privacy protected in terms of their deeply held political convictions was not respected. And the reason I think we would see the importance of a right to privacy in this context is that a person's opinions are in a meaningful way their own property. my opinions are my opinions, not just in the sense that I hold them, but that they are mine to dispose of, to share or not to share as I would wish. And laws, systems of administration or certification that do not allow an individual to, in fact, keep their opinions to themselves or dispose of them as they wish is a violation of their privacy. It is in a sense a violation of their ownership of their own opinions. But it also has negative practical consequences as well. In addition to violating the basic privacy rights of, in this case, members of the RCMP, not having a secret ballot, having a public ballot, always creates the risk of possible reprisal. And this is very much the early history of the movement to the secret ballot. Secret ballots were introduced in the 19th century in the UK, for example, around the time of the Great Reform Acts. And as the franchise was extended, as more people were being allowed to vote, there was a recognition that especially those who were more economically disadvantaged and therefore dependent on the employ of those who were wealthier than them, that they were vulnerable to political pressure and reprisals in the context of a public ballot. So the history ballot was, the secret ballot was very much brought in to protect the rights of people, of working men and women, to be able to express themselves politically without fear of reprisal. So it's perverse, it's ironic, it's quite unfortunate that it's precisely in the environment of union certification, where we're talking again about the basic political rights of working men and women, that the government is clearly not respecting the importance of the secret ballot. There is, of course, always the possibility that in a public ballot, someone would face some kind of a reprisal, a negative social or other response from colleagues if they weren't doing or voting in a certain way that was what this other person wished them to do. Now, the third argument in favor of the secret ballot is that it provides, thank you, Mr. Speaker, it provides protection against corruption. Before there were secret ballots, there was the real risk of people being paid to vote a certain way. And that's a possibility when you have a public ballot. That's obviously not a possibility when there is a secret ballot, because there is no way to effectively buy a vote, because you don't know then if the vote is actually provided as it was paid. So this is another argument that was important in the initial evolution of the secret ballot, and to some extent remains important now, that there is no possibility of there being inducements when there is a secret ballot. Now, finally, secret ballots ensure that there is a process of deliberation that happens before a vote. So a vote date is set. There is an opportunity for both sides of an argument to present their opinions, for there to be a conversation, and then for a conclusion to arise. I think most people accept the importance of this process of deliberation. That's why we have an election campaign. That's why we have a period of debate before an election takes place. Now, the advantages of this for working men and women in the context of certification are very clear. Someone might come up to me and say, why don't you sign this card and present me one side of the arguments? And I might say, sure, that sounds like a good idea. But I might feel differently if I was presented with counter-arguments. And having that process of deliberation ensures that people have time to think through and act according to their interests. So these are, I think, some key reasons why a secret ballot is important in this context and in all contexts. Now, the principal arguments we hear against the secret ballot, specifically in the context of certification. People say on the other side that, well, a secret ballot remains an option here, it's just not required. Well, all these arguments about the importance of a secret ballot, I think, indicate why a secret ballot should be guaranteed. People should have the certainty of knowing that their privacy will be protected. Now, if you said that, well, in the next general election, there will be secret ballots in some ridings but not in others, I think we would say that that was insufficient, that there should be a guarantee of respect for individuals' privacy when they cast their ballot. Now, certainly this issue of employer intimidation, the possibility of employer intimidation and an imbalance in the workplace is raised from time to time. Certainly, though, there is no serious possibility of intimidation against an individual voter who keeps their perspectives quiet and votes in a secret ballot. Now, there's always the risk of intimidation against organizers of a certification drive, and I would acknowledge that. But of course, the possibility of intimidation in that case exists regardless of whether or not there's a secret ballot, because somebody who is organizing, whether it's in the context of a card check or in the context of a secret ballot, there still is the possibility of intimidation there. Further, we're dealing with the government here. The likelihood of the government exerting employer type intimidation is very unlikely. So for these reasons, we see the value of this bill and we support it going to the committee, but we hope the government will see the value as well of the secret ballot. Thank you.